Hello, my name is Kayla Weaver, and in this presentation, I'm going to go over Form W-9, a little bit about what it is and why it's important. So you might already be familiar with Form W-9 if you've been requested to supply one to a client or a customer, or maybe you've had to request one from a subcontractor for your small business. This form is used to be able to file an information return with the IRS. So the Form W-9 itself does not go to the IRS, it just stays with the requester's records. That way when they go to file that information return, they have all of these pieces of information that they need to be able to do so. And that includes name, entity type, address, and taxpayer identification number. It's also important to keep this on file as it proves that what you filed on that information return matches what the taxpayer has certified was correct. They actually sign and date it, certifying that the information they've provided is true and accurate. So we're going to focus on the specific information returned called Form 1099 Miscellaneous. Now, I'll have a separate presentation going over this, but in general, you're required to file what we call Form 1099 whenever you pay $600 or more cumulative to either a person or a company during a calendar year, and that payment is made via cash, check, wire, ACH, bank transfer, or a combination of those types of payments for either services or rent, and that's in the course of your business. So if you simply pay an AC repairman to come out to your house, that is not in your trade or business. You're not going to have to follow this requirement in that case. It's just for your trade or business. These are due January 31st after the year end, so that's one reason we really stress that you need to get those Form W-9s early in the year, or at least before January. That way, that's one less thing you have to do in January. That's also why it's important to have your accounting fairly caught up. That way, you have less, or we have less accounting to do in January to be able to get those totals. Pretty much the only thing that's not on Form W-9 is the total. So you've got everything you need to file the Form 1099 Miscellaneous from W-9 except for the total that you paid that person or company during the year. Now I also want to mention that as I said, it would be payments cash, check, wire, ACH. If you pay via debit card, credit card, PayPal, or some other type of processor like that, you do not have to file Form 1099 Miscellaneous. And that's because those processors actually have a different form that they're required to file. But again, we can cover that a little bit more in that separate presentation. I'd like to now go through a few of the lines on Form W-9. That way, if you're filling out one of these for somebody, or if you've requested one of these from somebody, that you have a little bit better idea of what information is being supplied. So line 1 is going to be the name that is shown on your income tax return, and you have to fill out line 1 as a required field. Now what that means is if you're filing a Schedule C on your Form 1040, that's going to be your personal name. Line 2 has a spot where you can put your doing business as or disregarded entity name. Now if you're a partnership, C Corp, or S Corp, line 1 would be your business's name, whatever shows up on your business's tax return. You can still put the doing business as name on line 2. Line 3 shows the tax classification. Here is where you can mark if you're a single member LLC or sole prop, a C or S corporation, a partnership, or a trust or estate. There's also a box for limited liability company. So if you're an LLC that's taxed as a C Corp, S Corp, or partnership, you would check mark that box and indicate which entity type to the right. Now this area is very important because there are actually some instances where 1099 Miscellaneous does not have to be filed depending on this section. So in general, if a box for corporation has been checked, whether that be the C Corporation, S Corporation, or LLC taxed as a C Corporation or S Corporation box, if those have been checkmarked, then a Form 1099 Miscellaneous is not required to be filed in general. There are some exceptions to this. And then lines 5 and 6 are simply the business address. So that is where the Form 1099 miscellaneous copy will be sent to. One goes to the IRS, usually digitally e-filed, and then one goes to the recipient of the Form 1099 miscellaneous. Part 1 here is the taxpayer identification number. That's either going to be their social security number if it's for them as an individual, or the employer identification number if it's for them as a business. This goes back to matching line 1 in most cases. And then part 2 is the certification section. Kind of touched on this earlier, but this section is very important as it certifies that the information that they've given is correct. It also certifies that they're not subject to backup withholding of 24%, and then that they're a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person, but we won't get into that. Just know that it's important that you get this Form W-9 and have it signed from whoever supplied it to you for this certification. And that's really it. That's just some basics behind Form W-9. I highly encourage you to watch the Form 1099 miscellaneous presentation or read that blog, as it kind of builds off of this, and you can kind of see how the Form W-9 goes directly onto Form 1099 miscellaneous. Thanks for watching.